And welcome to unit number 7 and 8 for our critiquing course. I was reviewing Bill Lewis's book, Interpreting for Park Visitors. And in the back there's whole sections on questions and things you can do to develop your critiquing style. We talked earlier about how there are different ways you can do your critiquing. One would be to tell the person or the people you're going to be critiquing what it is you're looking for, and then give them a handout with a little checklist. Say, well, did you wear your tie? Did you introduce yourself? Did you introduce the theme? Did you tell them the objectives of the program? Did you use Till's interpreter principles? And so forth. And that way, when you go and do the critique of the program or the tour or the demonstration, you have the checklist that you gave them, and you kind of go through it and mark it off. Another way is, of course, being having a secret visitor, in other words, an interpreter from someplace else who the staff doesn't know, attend the program and take some mental notes, and then sit down with the person and with you later on, and go through in a neutral to positive way how the tour went, and talk about things they could do differently or things that did really well and techniques that you saw that you liked. One of the main things about critiquing is for you to sit down after you've seen the program or before you go to organize just how you're going to do the post-program or the post-hike or the post-tour critiquing. Where are you going to go? Are you going to make notes? Are you going to make mental notes? Are you going to videotape any of it with a cell phone? Like a person doing a demonstration or an activity, and that way you can play it back to them and say, well, look, right here is where you did this, but here's a different way to think about doing that. So there's lots of ways you can think about just how you're going to organize the post activity. We go through positive things. We go through things that could use improvement. Remember, in coaching, it's not that they did it wrong. It's just that they can do it better. And if you're going to critique a person and talk about things that you saw them do or hear them say that they could do better, you probably need to think about that before you tell them, because they're going to say, well, can you give me an example? And then you better be able to give them the example that would illustrate your point. For example, when I was doing critiquing with the state parks last summer, and the people were giving a guided walk, they get way far up ahead of the group, and the group had older people. They're kind of huffing and puffing to catch up. So their critique was, go slower. And another part of the program, a person asked them a question and they answered it like about a wildflower, and the rest of the group couldn't hear it. So the critique was, well, the answer you gave them was a good answer, but only 3 people could hear it out of the 20 that were on the hike. So probably the best thing to do is get the group together, repeat the question, and then repeat the answer. So those are things, technique things that you can think about. There's always more than one right answer, and if you have such a diversity of staff members from people that are really, really excellent and been there for a while versus brand new people, then you're going to do the critiquing differently. The main point of the critique, though, were the objectives of the program accomplished to your best of your understanding? Did they have an interpretive thing? Were all the principles that they did correct? The outcomes are really an important thing, and how they related to the audience, and did they invite the audience back for the next program? Those are things that you might want to be sure in your training that you tell them you want them to do. One last critique that I participated in was with a historic house, collection of historic houses for a museum here in Michigan. And it was 20 of the interpreters for that whole museum were going through a 3-day training course. And we had some really seasoned interpreters do stations at each of these different properties. And when our group came up, the person did their interpretation. And then that way, the group critiqued the presenter about what they liked, what they were confused about, was their vocabulary where they didn't understand, but they also were able to see some really good programs. They kind of use as a model. I've done it with the Army Corps of Engineers a lot with our critiquing of them giving programs and tours in our courses where they get group feedback. Of course, the group doesn't want to hurt or insult the person giving the program because they're going to have to work with them for the rest of the summer. But they get good ideas, and we, the trainers, also provided in some of our critiques. But getting group feedback from staff about, I tried this last year and it worked really well. You might want to try it this year, so they can share things that they did that really worked well. So that's what this unit is about, is planning how you're going to do the post-program, the post-demonstration critique. How are you going to organize it? Where are you going to go sit? And the last thing is, what happens if the person doesn't like your critique? Because that can't happen. We've had some critiques where we say, well, the way you did stop number 3, here are some ways you might want to improve that. And they went, no, I like what I did. What I did was fine. I did what I wanted, what I thought was very successful. And they didn't want to hear any other ideas because they've been doing that tour for 20 years as a volunteer, and they liked the way they did it, and they didn't want to change. So then what do? When you do the critiques and the person doesn't like what you're telling them? That's something I'd like you to think about, is how are you going to respond in the post-program critique to people who don't appreciate your thoughtfulness in giving them new ideas. So that's what these 2 units are about. We're getting close to the end. One last thing I just thought of is, if you do a written critique with a checklist, are you going to give them a copy so they'll know what your suggestions were? Or are you just hoping that they're going to remember it? Or are you going to encourage them to take notes from your critique about new ideas or ways to think about it? So that's one of the other things you might want to think about, is how you're going to handle the post-program critiquing. So have fun with the post-critiquing. I hope you are enjoying the course so far. All the units will blend together into one big ta-da when it's over. Only a couple more units for you to go. And if you have any questions at all, of course, on the forms that are attached, I can give you a phone call. We can chat by Skype or email if you have any questions at all. So that's about it. I hope you enjoy 7 and 8, and I'm looking forward to particularly how you're going to handle it if people don't like your critique of their program or service. Good luck with that one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.